What is up, Rumble? What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Ryan Matta Show. I'm your host, Ryan Matta. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We're going to have a great show. I got a special guest that's going to be joining us. If you guys could do me a huge solid, please smash that like button. If you get a chance, swing over and support our sponsors. mypillow.com/Matta will get you 25 to 50% off everything store-wide, and we can support the American patriots that are help fighting to save our country. And before I overtalk it, let me just bring on our guest. I want to say the name right. RAJAT Soni, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I want everybody to get to know you, and then we're going to dive into your story about how you got into Bitcoin, and we're going to talk about the current Bitcoin market.
Oh, for sure. I worked in the finance industry for a little while. I kind of hated it. Just being honest, I kind of hated it just because I was helping the rich get richer, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I was helping to manage portfolios for bond clients, let's say like pension funds, um, banks, insurance companies, and
Mhm.
I mean, if you kind of look at it, they were paying 1% in fees to earn like 2 or 3%. So I was just thinking, this job feels very useless. And during the pandemic, I think the best decision I made was to quit. Right, I left my job. I started posting on social media. I got my real estate license. I thought it was interesting to do, but then I mean, I kind of felt like I didn't find it interesting after I
Mhm.
started doing it. I didn't find it interesting at all.
Mhm.
So I started posting on social media, personal finance stuff. I started helping just the the average person with dealing with their finances. And then back then, I was more of an index fund person myself. I told people, "Oh, index funds are great. They're safe." I actually thought Bitcoin was a scam at one point. And I think if anybody looks really deep into it, if they spend the time trying to figure out what it is, it's hard to not see what it is, right? It's hard to not see that this thing is going to go up. It's literally designed to go up. When priced in fiat currencies, when priced in government issued currencies, it's designed to. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I mean, during the pandemic, I had some time. I During the lockdowns, I had some time. I spent that time listening to podcasts, and funny enough, Peter Schiff, his podcast was great in just teaching me past what I'd learned from the CFA, from my accounting and finance education. Just going past that, I guess his experience is great, but he
Mhm.
was a hater of Bitcoin, right? And he didn't want to know anything about it. I think he passed on it early, so he didn't want anything to do with it. But his content, just him constantly talking about it, made me think, hey, I want to look further into this. And somebody told me about the Bitcoin standard, read that, and just went down the rabbit hole from there.
It's a pretty crazy journey, my friend, how
Yeah.
you just learn about it. And it's like the second that you learn about it, if you keep an open mind and you give it enough time, it's like you just fall in love with this asset and you end up wanting to tell everybody about it. So can you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about when was the exact first day that you decided to start adding Bitcoin to your portfolio?
I don't remember the exact first day. I think it was sometime in 2022
Mhm.
while it was going down. So I watched it go from I watched it go from the $3,000 or 5,000, whatever the bottom was
Mhm. Yep.
in
2020.
2020. Yeah,
That was
my friend was telling
3,500.
me, "Hey, you should buy this. You should
Mhm.
buy this. You should buy this." He was telling me over and over again. I just thought, "Oh, it's gonna go a little lower. I'll wait. I'll wait. I'll wait."
Mhm.
I kept waiting, and it went from 35. I thought it would go from 3,500 to like 2,000 for some reason. I don't know why. I had
Mhm.
no clue what it was. I didn't know what I was doing. I think that's the story for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
They're thinking that it's going to go down. They're hoping that they're hoping and praying that it'll go down, um, but it doesn't. So I ignored it for a really long time, and then I came back to it, and it was something like $25,000 on the way up.
Yeah.
And again, I was thinking, "Oh, it's too high, too expensive, too expensive."
Mhm.
And then the good thing was at that point, I saw somebody post about the Bitcoin standard, and I started listening to the audiobook for it.
Yep, me
I
too.
still thought Bitcoin was a gamble at that point. I read the book, I learned the history of money, and I did a deeper dive after that. My very first buy, I believe, was in sometime in early 2022, around maybe it was at 40,000 US, maybe
Hmm.
35,000 US. I don't remember the exact price, but I know it was like $10. The good thing is, I mean, you can buy as much as you want to, right? So
Yeah.
first buy was like $10. Started from there and I went from there.
Can you talk us a little bit about how did you get to where you are now? What percentage of your portfolio do you suggest that people are trying to allocate to something like this? And you said so your first buy was $10, and then that was
Mhm.
at like 35, and obviously price kept coming down from 2022. Um,
Yeah.
what was that like? Tell me about that process.
It was a little scary to see, just because I started with 10, and then as the price went down, I started buying more and more and more.
Yep.
Um, it was a little scary to see it drop after FTX collapsed, but
Hmm.
by that point, I had done quite a bit of research, and I was convicted enough to actually buy after FTX collapsed. I think most people were still a little worried. Actually made a couple of my friends, they saw FTX collapse. I told them, "Hey, this thing's gonna come back up," and they didn't buy, right? It went to what, 15.5,
Yep.
15.6 or something like that.
Hmm.
I bought right after it dipped, so it went down to 15.6, 15.5. I bought around 17 or
Me too.
16 or 17 or so. I was telling these guys, "Hey, this thing is going to go up. You're missing out on this thing. It's going to go back to 50, 60K. I've done this much research. I've learned about how this thing works." Before that recovery, I still kind of thought it was a gamble before um before it came back up to like 17, 18K pretty much immediately, right? I still thought it was a bit of a gamble, and then I realized, hey, this thing is people are starting to figure this out. It's going to come back up. FTX literally has nothing to do with Bitcoin, right? They're just a bunch
Correct.
of scammers who are trying to take
Yep.
people's Bitcoin.
CIA.
I mean, after I think after you see it, it's impossible not to see where this is going,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
once you get it, it's very easy to see the future where this is going to be going. I mean, it's kind of obvious once you put in the time. Of course, there's going to be volatility.
Mhm.
That's something people are afraid of, but there's going to be volatility once you get that in your head. You figure it out that, okay, this thing is going to be the future, right? This is the future of money. This is not tulips. This is not a Ponzi scheme.
Mhm.
This is not some kind of scam. It's going to replace money the way that we see it today.
So I want to, that was very well said. I want to go back a little bit. You had talked about the previous work you were doing. You said real estate and a few other things. And you're like, it just wasn't rewarding. Can you tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, of course. Um, I think a lot of people who buy and sell real estate, they just assume that it's going to continue to go up forever, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think what kind of got me was people were literally flipping properties, making two, 300 grand off just market euphoria within 2 months, right? And then they started losing two or 300 grand because of the market euphoria leaving, right? They were losing. There was a client who, not a client, but I saw a property go on sale that was completely refurb. It was completely fixed up, completely looking. I mean, it looked really nice after they had made all their changes. They did all this work, but they couldn't even get back what they paid for it in the first place, right? So as soon as you see as soon as you see what's happening, I think a lot of people were just gambling on
Mhm.
on real estate. A lot of people even today they're gambling on real estate, right? They're expecting this thing to keep going up. So I know right now the returns are something like maybe 7 to 10% on real estate. Um, if you think about it, people expect those returns to continue. In 30 years, I'm in Toronto, so in 30 years, a townhouse right now is something like $1 million. In 30 years, these people are expecting a townhouse to be 6, $7 million, right? How does that make sense? Right? And so as soon as you see it, as soon as I saw it, as soon as I saw that, okay, this thing is a gamble. A lot of people are just doing this because they think it's going to go up, and they actually have no idea what the economy is doing. They have no idea what's happening to
Mhm.
they don't even know why they own real estate, right?
Yeah.
I think as soon as I saw that, I kind of wanted to move away from it. I feel like real estate is it expl- I don't know if that's the right word, but I feel like it exploits people for something that they need,
It
right?
sure does.
Um, I think a lot of people they own these properties, and you'd be surprised how many of these properties just stay empty. People are okay with paying the taxes, right? They're okay with paying a vacant land tax. They're okay with paying a vacant property tax because they know that if they don't have that property, the value of their savings is going to decrease anyways, right? This is for the Canadian dollar. I know this podcast is in the US, but the
Very
Canadian
similar.
dollar is even worse than the US dollar, right?
Yep.
And that's the funny part. So these people, even if they have to pay a vacant property tax, they're still better off
Yep.
compared to having just cash in their bank account, right? So all these, I mean, I think the real estate market is. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this. I know a lot of people are going to. I get a lot of hate for saying it on Twitter. I think the real estate market has turned into a Ponzi scheme, right? It
Couldn't agree more.
requires new buyers to come into the market. It
Hmm.
requires that new buyers continue to earn the income that these landlords want to earn or want to receive for their property. And what landlords are doing is they're taking somebody else's work and they're using it to pay for their own lifestyle, right? All these people, they're sitting at home. Of course, managing a property is not easy, but working 60, 70 hours a week is much harder than managing properties, managing a rental portfolio. I personally feel like the real estate market, again, like I said, it's turning into a Ponzi scheme. I think it's going to become a lot worse.
Hmm.
It's going to keep getting worse. And I wanted to get out of it. I didn't feel like it was something that I wanted to continue doing. So I actually got rid of my license. I haven't made any I didn't do any transactions since I think it was August of 2022. I just had my license in the background. I was doing social media. I was helping people out. I was trying to do one-on-one calls, just getting people in the right mindset. I pretty much stopped doing real estate and I got rid of my license in February. I felt like it was a great decision. So
I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in that. Were you just selling houses for people? Like your friends wanted to list a house, you'd go and list it and take care of the transaction? Or were you actually buying your own properties, fixing them up and flipping them?
no, I was helping people buy their properties. So I helped a couple people buy their primary residence.
Okay, awesome. And how is it going in Canada for real estate? We have a huge crisis in America right now with this mass migration that's coming in. These migrants are coming over and they're actually breaking into people's houses that are vacant. Like you said, they're just paying the property tax, the land tax. They don't have anybody in there. Maybe it's their vacation home. They're out of town for 8 or 10 months out of the year. They're coming back and they're finding migrants. And now our government's not
Mhm.
letting these people remove the migrants from their house. So you add a different, I guess, an element to the real estate market that people always thought their money was safe in real estate. It was my property. I owned it. You know, the Constitution is going to protect me from the government from taking it or destroying it or pillaging it. And now that's
Mhm.
changed. Is that happening in Canada in the real estate as well?
I honestly I don't know the details. I think there is a lot more demand for real estate now because our immigration has increased significantly. I think 2024, oh sorry, 2023 was one of the highest. Uh, one of the I think we had one of the most number of people coming into Canada in 2023. Um, it is getting worse. Like you can see
Gosh,
it.
damn.
There's a property across from me. It just across the street from me. It rented for 2600, 27 or $2,600. Uh, how long ago? 2.5 years ago. Now it's renting for 3,900. So in that time, it's increased by $1,000. Right? That's a $12,000 increase for the year. So rentals are definitely increasing in cost. People are paying a lot more. They're having to pay a lot more to get the same thing. Um, and yeah, it's gonna keep getting worse, right? It's definitely gonna keep getting worse. There's no way for it to get better, right? Because more people, we have so many zoning restrictions. Um, Toronto's mayor wants to create 25,000, um, what's it called? Affordable projects, $25,000, 25,000 affordable homes. But I mean, 25,000, where we have like 500,000 immigrants coming in, and most of them are flocking to Toronto because this is where all the jobs are, right? So the supply and demand is completely out of whack. right? I'm sure that's exactly the same thing in the US. It's going to keep
Hmm.
getting completely it's gonna keep getting worse, can keep getting worse. I feel like, again, like I said, this is a Ponzi scheme. It's a way to convince newer market participants to keep paying the old market participants, to keep them holding the properties that they have,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
I mean, it's exploitation at the end of the day. So
Do you think that there's going to be a point in time where enough people are waking up and saying exactly what you're saying? They're realizing this. Like, what happens when the masses realize that they've just been played and they've are now giving? I mean, well, actually, let me take this a step back. Let me go. What is the price
Mhm.
of a trip to like your local grocery store cost you? Like, if you wanted to feed, maybe you have a kid, a wife at home. What is your average grocery bill in Canada right now? It's like if you walked into, like, I don't know if you guys have Walmarts, but like, what is the average when
Yeah.
you go shopping for a week's worth of food? What are you spending in Canada?
So a week's worth of food, probably, depending on how healthy you eat. Of course, you can eat like all the shitty foods. You can get all these snacks. You can get all this processed food. If you do that, I mean, it's still gone up, but if you do that, maybe $200. But if you get healthy food, like if you get meat, if you get whole foods, if you stick to veggies, fruits, get all the stuff that actually gives you nutrients, it'll probably cost you 50 to 60% more, right? So $300 for a week. I mean, I think that's easy to say. I know people who are paying $2,000 a month on groceries. It's getting worse, right? It's not getting better. It's just continuously getting worse. The same food that cost like $100 5 years ago now costs 200, 250, 225, right? Because it's the prices of the things that are difficult to produce. Those are the prices that are going up, right? Like, do you eat steak?
Oh, every meal almost. I
Yeah.
live on it
Okay. Yeah.
now.
See, steak is what's going up, right? Steak is what's getting more expensive. It's not the like the chicken. Chicken is getting more expensive, of course, but steak is just insanely highly priced. Like,
Hmm.
I was going to Costco to get ground beef. They have this organic ground beef there. It
Hmm.
was 29.99 a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Now it's something like $36 for, I think, 4 pounds. So it's gone up 20%. Yeah, 20% in a year, right? And it's just going to keep getting worse. It's not like it's going to get better and there's no reason for it to get better because the value of our money keeps going down.
So with everything you're saying, this just big picture, Bitcoin becomes the apex predator as a way for you to protect your wealth against inflation. It's the only asset that you can pretty much safely at this point in time allocate money to that your government can't print into oblivion or destroy or corrupt. Am I on the right track?
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, completely.
So, with your background and experience, it seems like you're very well educated in the finance sector, real estate. It seems like you're doing very well for yourself. What percentage of your portfolio are you allocating to Bitcoin right now?
So I used to have a lot of index funds. I posted something about this maybe 3 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago. I got rid of everything that I have other than I have a primary residence. I feel like that's not an investment to me. It's
Hmm.
just a place to live in, right?
Yep.
And it gives me some stability. So I have a primary residence. I have maybe 2 ounces of gold.
Hmm.
My wife has some stocks. I'm trying to convert her into just having Bitcoin.
Hmm.
But other than that, I mean, everything that I personally have, I haven't put anything into stocks. I haven't put anything to rental properties. I haven't put anything into. The only things that I really invest in now are Bitcoin and my business, right? So I think the total
Yep.
percentage of my portfolio, if I don't include my rent, my sorry, not my rental property, my primary residence,
Mhm.
I have probably like 90 something percent in Bitcoin.
Let's go. I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I mean, it makes sense, right? If
mhm,
you once you see it, it's impossible to move away, right? Once you see it, you're going to keep increasing your allocation.
everybody does. And people
Yeah.
thought we were crazy, back in 2016, 2015. I remember talking about, I was one of the first people out there teaching people how to mine Ethereum on,
Wow.
Basically when I could do it, it was like $2.64, but I could build a computer with a couple graphics cards. You know, it was just a regular, like now they call them gaming PCs, but back then I don't even think there was games that you could play that needed two graphics cards. You know, maybe like a few computer games, but you know, you could
Oh yeah.
mine this asset, and everybody, you know, I mean, people at my work thinking I was just absolutely crazy. I was walking around the factory like telling everybody that I was basically building computer employees. That's what I was calling them because I could plug this thing
Yeah.
in and it was like an employee. Like I paid $200 a month in electricity and it made me $400 worth of this cryptocurrency, right? I had no idea what it was. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's crazy. We kind of talked a little bit about before how Bitcoin's building this secular economy around it. Now you have, is your business a Bitcoin business? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually I post so much on Twitter,
Mhm.
and I felt like there was something that I had to do where, because people are just asking me the same questions over and over again, right? They're just asking me the same things. They're asking me, "Oh, this thing is a Ponzi scheme. I need to explain it. This thing is this. I need to explain it." They're saying, "Oh, this thing can get hacked. I need to explain that." So
Mhm.
I just created a 2 hour video, right?
Yeah.
Just explaining all those things, and I sell it, right? I mean, and it's doing insanely well because people want all of that. They want to
And
learn, right?
let's hold on,
So
stop right there because this is part of your link tree, which is down in the description. I see you got a
yeah,
Bitcoin masterclass, you got a mini course, you got another mini course on financial, you have a book on coaching calls, or you can book a coaching call with you. You have
yeah,
ShakePay, and you can subscribe to your newsletter, which is also free. Correct?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
just
yeah.
want to promote
That's
those for
exactly
you.
what it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that. But I don't even try to. I don't. I try to avoid telling people to take it. If they see it, they see it. I
Hmm.
put it in my captions on Instagram, but otherwise, I don't really push it. But I mean, it's been doing well just based on word of mouth, right? A lot of people who have taken the course have suggested it to their friends and family. They've gotten their friends and family to do it, and I mean, every single person that takes it pretty much ends up orange pilled, right? So to them, $35 is nothing,
Yep.
right? I think I did a really good job with the course. I guess it depends on whether or not somebody's an expert or they know Bitcoin or not. I think if they're a beginner, the course does pretty well. So I think it's just proof of work, right? It's like everything else. Once you put in the work to understand something, you can teach it to other people in very simple terms. Now that was my goal with that. So that's my main business. Other than that, I mean, I'm working, trying to work on other things. I'm trying to I my main goal here is to retire my wife. I think that's the most important thing. My wife is pretty much supporting the most of the bills right now. I'm putting everything that I can into Bitcoin, and she's perfectly fine with it because she knows where this is going. But
Yep.
these businesses, I mean, they're the goal here is to pretty much have the freedom, right? I'm sure you have the same. You're thinking the same way with your podcast, right? Your podcast is definitely doing very well. It will do much better. It'll compound over time, and it's
Mhm.
going to give you that freedom as well.
It really will, man. I was
Mhm.
before I went into politics, I was doing about, well, across three channels, about 30 million views every 30 days. And then as the more I went into
Yeah.
politics, then I started getting basically when I was going full-time politics and my channel was doing about 10x of like the local news stations, they couldn't have that, so then they demonetized me. So then I had to start back over
Ooh,
again. This one I'm keeping strictly crypto for that reason because I know that they'll just demonetize it, and it's you know, taking a $10,000 hit a month for
yeah.
because you're just speaking the truth. I mean, that's a pretty big hit, and but it does compound over time. And I like what you said about trying to retire your wife because I think that that is an absolute alpha male masculine feature and aspect. You know, we've kind of been brainwashed to believe that, you know, both the man and woman should work, where I think the man should be able to generate enough wealth that his wife should only work as optional if she chooses to or wants to. And I
Yeah.
don't know many people that want to go into a 9 to 5 and work and make somebody else rich unless it's they're a nurse and they're helping people or they're really, you know, most people don't want to work. So I think it's very honorable what you're doing. And I think Bitcoin is one of the only tools that really gives you that opportunity because, like you said, groceries are up, you know, 20 or 40%. Rents up sounds like 33% in the last couple of years. What
Yeah.
is the minimum wage in Canada? And is the minimum wage going up by 30% a year?
No, definitely not. It's I think it's around 1650 per hour, and that's not even close to what people need, right? It's like 35 grand a year. 35 grand a year is just rent. So all these people, this is what I mean, right? It's a way to. I think real estate is a way to exploit people to get them to keep working just for the necessities, right?
Hmm.
There was a clip that I saw on Instagram today, something about it was from the movie. I think it was the movie Bugs Life or Ants, something
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah, and
I
I'm
was
sure
looking at the
about.
comments, but essentially they were saying how in the movie they were saying how we can't let the workers up we can't let the workers gain a footing in this just because we want to make sure that they keep working. This is how we sustain our lifestyle. That's exactly what it is, right? If you think about it, real estate investors, they have a certain lifestyle. They need to keep increasing rentals. They need to keep increasing the cost for anybody who's renting their property so that they can sustain their lifestyle, right? I mean, and it's terrible how it happens. If I've looked at the history of how this thing works, it's designed to keep getting worse, right? It's literally designed to keep people working forever, right? As minimum wage increases, costs are going to go up. As costs go up, you need to pay more you need to pay more for everything. You need to work more. A lot of people are working 3, 4 jobs, man. Like it's scary. It really is scary at this point. I mean, all these things, Uber, Lyft, all these side gig companies came out, but I mean, they're not really paying their workers either, right? I came back from the airport a few days ago. This guy was saying how he works a day job, then he does Uber in the evenings all the way till like 3 a.m.
Dear
and he
Lord.
sleeps from 3 to 7, 3 to 8. That's pretty much his day, right? And he's a young
Yeah.
guy. He's probably like in his mid 20s.
Hmm.
He sleeps 3 or 4 hours a day. The rest of it is just contribute to working, and he's renting a property. The
Jeez.
majority of his income is going towards renting that property.
Check this out. So you're talking about the movie Ants, right? I was able to pull
Yeah,
it, and it says, "You let one ant stand up to us, and they
yeah,
might all stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1, and if we ever let them figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food;
exactly.
it's about keeping those little ants in line." And I want to get your commentary on that, but I want to play a clip. This is how a majority of Americans are feeling, and I assume a lot of Canadians are feeling the same way. You guys got the little
Mhm.
kiddos watching, throw those earmuffs on or put us in the headphones if you're at work. There might be a few F bombs coming here, but this is how the majority of us are feeling.
Insane. There are people working 2 jobs just to survive in this economy. They're working 2 jobs and they're still living paycheck to paycheck and struggling. And these are the people that went to college. These are the people that did exactly what they're supposed to do. Like, it does not work anymore. Like, everybody sits there and all the older generations sit there and they say, work harder, work harder. It's like, how hard the fuck do you want us to work? You had it freaking a little bit easier than us. You were able to work a normal job. You were able to live that American dream and afford the house and pay it off. And now you guys sit there and say, well, I have a house. You were 50 something years old. And when you were buying that house, it was so much cheaper and the wages matched the pricing of housing and pretty much everything. Now the price that we get for a wage doesn't match what we need to spend. We're spending 2 to 3 times more than you did on anything. That is fucking scary. And you guys are telling us to work harder. How many jobs are we supposed to work? 3?
That's crazy.
Give us your commentary on that.
It's so true, right? I mean, I don't think I know anybody who doesn't struggle with money at this point, right? When you go to
Crazy.
parties, when you go to just get-togethers, everybody's talking about how everything has gotten so much more expensive, right?
Hmm.
And if you think about it, there's at least one conversation saying, "Oh, food got so expensive, gas is so expensive, um, rent is so expensive." There's always going to be somebody talking about that, right? But the thing is that I feel like a lot of people aren't able to make the connection that this isn't because the things that they're buying are getting more expensive. It's not that the things that they're buying are becoming more valuable. It's because the money that they're using, the way that they're storing wealth is a losing proposition. No matter what you do,
Yep.
your your wealth is going to go away if you store US dollars, if you store Canadian dollars. The stock market is better than storing US dollars. The issue is that when you have stocks, your wealth is increasing what 7 to 10% per year. The issue is that the money supply is increasing like 15% a year, right? I was looking at this chart. It said it was showing how the U.S. stock market hasn't gotten back to the M2 money supply, whatever the rate of issuance was. It's never beat that, right? And it's it hasn't gotten to that point since I think it was I may be wrong on this, but maybe since the
70s.
1930s, right? And it's never going to.
So people have no choice.
Yeah, they
Like
have no
it's
choice, right? I mean, that's the thing. And our prime minister has said so many negative things about Bitcoin. Justin Trudeau, he
mhm.
said so many negative things about Bitcoin. So people are staying away, right? People are scared, right? I've gotten quotes. People have actually commented on my post saying, "Hey, Justin Trudeau said it's a scam, so I'm not going to touch it," right? And
What?
why don't you study it? Just put in the time. It's not going to just come to you for nothing. And these people, they don't want you to. At the end of the day, politicians don't want you to become free, right? They want to.
No.
They're the ones who own the properties. Justin Trudeau's net worth is something like $100 million, right? He doesn't give a shit about the regular average person.
How do you I'm surprised that Bitcoin, I mean, we in America, we somewhat have a free press, right? Like I have the ability
Mm.
to tell my government to come and suck it, and there's not a gosh damn thing that they can do about it. Canada, you guys are a little bit more tyrannical over there. You can't freely express yourself. The news content is controlled and aggregated by government-owned media outlets.
Mhm.
Joe Biden and the Democratic Party has been my best sounding board for onboarding people into Bitcoin. Because when they say Bitcoin's a scam, I say, yeah, you sound a lot like Joe Biden. And now I can say you sound a lot like Trudeau. So
Yeah.
there's still people in Canada that listen to that man and actually take
Oh, yeah.
advice?
Absolutely. There's always going to be,
Jeez
right? I mean,
Louise, that's
keep
scary.
in mind, keep in mind, this is just herd mentality, right? Most people are not. This is my prediction. Most people aren't going to touch Bitcoin until it hits $1 million, right? Most people are going to keep ignoring it. Most people are going to keep saying that this is a scam, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's whatever comes to their mind. They're going to listen to the people that are the leaders in their country, right?
Yep.
Because they most people can't think for themselves, and who can blame them, right? They're working 3 jobs a day.
Mhm.
They don't have
Yeah,
time to learn about
you're
Bitcoin.
right.
They're spending their time trying to pay for rent.
Mhm. You're right on that. And it is. And that's almost by design, you think?
Yeah,
Like our government
absolutely.
completely created this system. The system's never designed to help you get out of the system. The system is always
Yeah.
designed to keep you in the system. And it's
Mhm.
hard. Why do you think it's so hard? Is it just because, we grew up in a time where, the elite built the education system, the Rothschilds, the Vanderbilts, like they literally created the education system in America. And it was, I think the famous quote was, I'm not going to give you a nation of happy people. I'm going to give you a nation of workers, people that keep their heads down, go to work, pay their bills, pay their taxes, and be basically good little fiat slaves. What is it? Is it that we were raised? I personally was go to school, get a good job, put money into your 401k, work hard. You can accomplish anything you want in life. You can save your way to success, as they say. Why is it so
Yeah, I
hard
mean
for
that.
people? Like we don't trust our
Oh, no, go ahead, go
government.
ahead.
I don't know anybody that trusts Trudeau, but I'm not in Canada. But yet
Mhm.
people are still taking advice from these people who have absolutely destroyed their lives. Why is that? Why aren't more people waking up faster like we did?
Man, I think people just don't care. I think a lot of people they can't make the connections, right? Like if you ask, most people will say that, oh, Bitcoin was at 69,000 2 years ago, and people who bought it then are losing money, right? They're almost everybody who doesn't pay attention to things, they don't look at cycles, right? They don't think that okay, this thing is going to go up, then it's going to come back down. It's going to go up, it's going to come back down.
Hmm.
That's also why most people think that fiat currencies are stable, right? They don't see that the value of fiat currencies has decreased over time. I think it's important to have kind of an analytical mindset when it comes to this stuff. I personally, it took me a it. I think understanding the legacy financial system made it easier for me to understand Bitcoin, but it also slowed me down, right? I know a lot of people who have no finance background that are doing very, very well with Bitcoin. It's because they opened their mind. right?
Hmm.
Most people aren't willing to do that. Most people aren't willing to challenge their beliefs. They're not willing to challenge what their parents have told them their whole lives. They're not willing to, because keep in mind, most parents still think that real estate is the way to go, right? Most people who are Gen X, baby boomers, older than that, they still think real estate is the way to go, right? And the kids have learned to respect their parents. They think that okay, everything my parents are saying is right, right? They don't even question it. So
Hmm.
they just think, hey, I'm going to buy real estate as well, and I'm going to become financially free like my parents, right? I know that's not the case for everybody. I know not everybody has parents that own real estate, but I think it stems from that, right? It comes from the fact that real estate has worked, but people don't see from first principles why everybody needs to own real estate in the first place, right? Once you connect those dots, you can see why you need to own Bitcoin.
You had just said something there that I'm a huge fan of. You said first principles. For anybody that
Mm.
doesn't understand, walk us through Bitcoin from a first principle standpoint and kind of break down what first principles are.
Yeah, of course. So how I think of it, my definition may be wrong, but how I think of it is looking at the root cause, right? The root cause of what made something happen. So I know a lot of people say, "Hey, gold is great because you can use it as industrial. You can use it in industrial ways. You can use it for jewelry. You can use it for a paperweight. You can use it as money. You can use it as a store of value." But why is that, right? Why are people storing their wealth in gold, right? I think it's important to see what money truly is, right? Most people just see money as a way to get whatever they want, right? They see it as a medium of exchange, but they don't realize that money has more than one use case, right? More than one function. If your money isn't fulfilling all of those functions, then your money it'll fail, right? So, for example, today we use the US dollar, we use the Canadian dollar. US dollar is the world reserve currency. Most people are saving in US dollars. I went to Jamaica just a few days ago. Everybody there wants US dollars. They don't want, well, they want US dollars or they want Jamaican dollars, but they don't want, if I gave them a rock, they're not going to accept that as money, right? Because US dollars have this history where we believe that those US dollars will continue to hold value, right? We see it on a short time frame, so we don't see the fact that it's losing value over like 10, 20, 30 years. If you look at money from first principles, you can see that houses are seen as a store of value because the US dollar doesn't work, right? Everybody who's figured out that the US dollar is going to lose value gets out of it ASAP, right? If you think about it, people are directly dollar cost averaging into stocks, into real estate, directly out of their paycheck. They're moving money as soon as they get paid. They're moving it into their stock account, and they're getting rid of it. They're getting rid of it as
Hmm.
quickly as they can because they want something that can actually store value over time. But it takes some time to actually get to that point. It takes an understanding of money, like I said, from first principles, understanding that this thing can lose value over time. It will lose value over time. There's no limit to this. So once you realize that there's no limit to this, you realize that this thing is going to it's designed to lose value, right? So for example, Biden sent what $100 billion for war,
250 billion.
right?
Yeah,
So yeah, crazy,
that's
right?
it.
So if you calculate that 250 billion, I'm actually going to do the calculation right now. Somebody was I think it was Robert Breedlove.
Yeah,
He was talking about how many lives, how many lifetimes of income that is. So let me actually
yeah,
calculate
yeah.
this.
Do
So
that for us.
250 billion divided by, let's say somebody earns $50,000 per year. That's five. I don't know. Maybe I put in a zero, maybe not enough zeros, but
Take your time. Do
it
it again
looks
if
like
you
it would
want.
be 5 million lifetimes, right? So you're earning, if you earned $50,000 for five per year, sorry, per year for 5 million years, not 5 million lifetimes, it's 5 million years. So if you earned $50,000 per year for 5 million years, that's the amount that the US government printed by pressing a button, right? So what's going to happen to that currency? That currency is going to lose value over time, right? People are storing their wealth in that currency that can be printed at will. They're seeing their wealth just disappear in front of them, right? How hard is it to save $10,000 if you're making $50,000 a year? Pretty difficult,
Almost
right?
impossible.
Most people can't do it,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know anybody that can.
So when somebody does that, if they save $10,000 a year, if let's say they have a career of 30 years or 40 years, whatever, save $10,000 a year, they have $400,000 saved in their bank account at the end of that 30, 40-year career. They can only pay for 2 years of their expenses because of inflation, right? Because the amount of money that's entered the economy has increased so much that vendors want more money for the goods that they're producing and selling, right? It's not corporate greed. It's not like, did you see Biden's commercial during the Super Bowl saying, "Oh, these snacks, we love our snacks. We want ice cream." Did you see that?
Yeah, where they called it shrinkflation or something like that.
Yeah,
It was embarrassing. Yeah,
exactly.
talk about that, man.
So if you think about it, they printed $250 billion. They added it to the economy, and now people have more money to chase the same number of goods, right? The number of goods hasn't increased. The amount of ice cream, the amount of Oreos hasn't increased, even though those are the shittiest foods that you can eat.
Yeah,
That was his example, right? He was saying how, oh, I want my ice cream. But the thing is that even those highly processed foods have also increased in price, right? So the creation is automated, the the production is automated. There's barely there. I mean, there is human input that goes into it, of course, but
hmm,
it's decreased over time, right? So what
yeah,
I think the conclusion here is that what the U.S. government is doing, what the Canadian government, actually every government that prints money, what they're
yeah.
doing is they're stealing productivity gains. I think it was Jeff Booth that said this best. Um, you can't judge a system from within a system. So that was Jeff. That wasn't my line. I didn't say that. Jeff Booth said that. He's great. You can go check him out as well. But what he said was great because if you're constantly surrounded by dollars, this was me, right? Before I discovered Bitcoin, this was
Yeah.
me. When you're constantly surrounded by dollars, you don't see things in any other perspective, right? So the dollar is it's the best Ponzi scheme out of every other every currency is generally a Ponzi scheme because I mean even the way that they fund it, they take on debt, right?
Yeah.
It's the best shitcoin out of a long list of shitcoins, right? And every
Greg Foss says it's the best horse at the glue factory.
oh, there you go. Yeah, that's perfect. I didn't even I wouldn't even have thought of that. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is, right? It's gonna just because you see that the US dollar is strong, they're gonna tell you it's strong, inflation is 2%, doesn't mean it's true, right? It's just
Nope.
they're replacing the goods that you eat. I saw somewhere how CPI used to be steak, and then it went to ground beef, then
Hmm.
it went to um, I think it went to ground beef with fillers, and it just keeps getting worse and worse, right? The thing is that the products that we have aren't getting better, and they're still getting more expensive. So why is that? Because the dollars that you're using are losing value, right? It's a long-winded way of saying that you shouldn't save in dollars, right? Because your dollars are going to lose value. They're guaranteed to lose value. They're designed to lose value. So don't save dollars. Get rid of them. Get rid of them as soon as you can. Buy something scarce. Even if you wanted to buy food, you'd be better off than saving in dollars because your food has doubled in price, but your dollars have decreased by 50%.
I've been preaching this for a while on my, especially on my political show on LFA, that I said this summer, if you can't afford to buy Bitcoin, the best thing, but you have a couple extra $100, the best thing you should do for your family is go out and buy anything that you're going to use: toilet paper, paper towel, things that aren't going to degrade, because you're going to buy them anyways. And
Yeah.
price is never coming back down. So you're never going to be able to get toilet paper cheaper a year from now than you can get it today. So if you have the ability and you want to give yourself, an extra $20 in your paycheck 6 months from now, go buy your toilet paper now. Go buy those things because times are about to get really tough. I think that the economy is going to continue to get worse. Our government, I assume Canada's the same way, has no intentions of slowing down that money printer. In the debt-based cycle, they have to create new money. That's the only way that this Ponzi scheme continues to continue on. What is your advice for somebody that's already living paycheck to paycheck, has no allocation to Bitcoin, has no ability to save right now? Do you suggest they get a second job? Is this the I had interviewed somebody last night. They said, yeah, I mean, you just have to go work harder, get a second job. It's the only option you have right now. If you're not allocating to Bitcoin and you want to, but you don't have the money, are you screwed for the rest of your life? Are you going to be a fiat slave or just completely get crushed when all this kind of finally collapses? Or how does one go about acquiring Bitcoin for the first time if they're in a really bad position right now?
I think so. Just based on my conversations with people, based on my experience, just looking at people's finances, I think a lot of people are spending money and they don't even realize it. Right? They're spending way too much, way more than they think, and they don't notice that they're doing it because they don't track their expenses, right? So for example, in my situation, I'm not saying that everybody else is terrible. I'm going to tell you what I was doing too, right? I want to make sure that people can actually relate to this, right? So
Yep.
what I was doing is when I was in university, when I was in my early 20s, early to mid 20s, I was spending something like $300 to $500 a month on takeout, right? And back then, things were cheap. 10 years ago, things were super cheap compared to what they're now.
Yeah.
If I continued that habit, I'd probably be spending $700 to $1,000 a month on takeout, right? So,
Damn.
and that was one meal a day, 700 to $1,000 a month, and that sounds about right because you're paying what, $20 to $25 a meal
Yep.
now. Um, I think looking at your expenses, tracking your expenses, figuring out what you're spending your money on is probably the best way to go. I'm not sure if you saw this, but Joe Biden said that he wants to tax billionaires 25%. Did you see that?
I sure did, buddy. Yep.
Right? So, and if you think about it, what's that? So he was saying how it's going to generate 400 billion dollars over the next 10 years. I think the US government, just like regular everyday people, the US government has a spending problem. It doesn't have an income problem,
Sure
right?
does.
It's spending way too much. It's spending what how much is it adding to its debt? Like 1 to 3 trillion dollars a year?
No, it's
What's that
yeah,
400 billion dollars
exactly.
going to do?
$100
Right?
trillion
What
dollars. They just reported this. $100 trillion every 100, or sorry, $1 trillion every 100 days. So 3.5
Oh, yeah,
trillion a
there you
year,
go.
roughly. It's insane.
So what's $400 billion going to do over the next 10 years? Nothing,
Nothing.
right? Nothing. It's just gonna. I'm not in support of billionaires. I don't really care. I don't give a shit about them. They can defend themselves. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to tax them and spend the money on stupid shit. Right? Same thing with regular average people. Like I've spoken to people who have 6 streaming services because they feel like they deserve to be able to spend more on entertainment because they hate their life. They work 5 jobs. They can barely afford rent, so they want to have 5 or 6 streaming services so they can entertain themselves. If you cut out 4 of those streaming services, you're saving 80-90 bucks a month, right? Put that 80-90 dollars a month into Bitcoin. Or if you're getting takeout every single day, scale down, cut down one day a week, cut down 2 days a week. Over time, you'll get used to it, right? So right now, before I was used to getting takeout all the time. I was getting takeout pretty much every single day. Now I get takeout here and there. I'm comfortable cooking at home. It's a skill that I've developed. And I'm going to continue doing this because it has the health benefits, of course. I think the saving money part is it's more than just it's more than just depriving yourself of the things that you want. Right now, I'm eating much better than I was before. Right before, I was eating shitty meals, getting takeout, getting food from fast food restaurants, McDonald's, KFC, all that garbage. Now I can make food at home. It's costing me less and I'm eating much better food, right? So it's trade-offs. Once you figure out which trade-offs you're willing to make, you start from just you go from going from 0 to 1 is hard, and then going from 1 to 100, in my opinion, it's much easier, right? So once you get that habit down of getting rid of your takeout once a week, becomes easier to do it twice a week, then 3 times a week, then 4 times a week. That's just one thing, right? I mean, people have different habits. People are going out, they're getting drinks, they're getting $25 drinks, they're getting $50 bottles of alcohol. Luckily, I don't drink. Um, those are habits that you have to work on, right? I'm not saying cut it out, cut it down slowly, right? You don't have to just completely get rid of it. It's not about not enjoying your life. It's about making the decisions that can actually help you in the future, right? And I think this is one of those decisions, right? Cutting down on takeout, cutting down on streaming services, cutting down on drinking, cutting down on smoking, all that stuff. It adds up, right? And to go back to your question, how can somebody get Bitcoin, right? You can get as much Bitcoin as you want to, right? I have a when I just left my job in 2021, 2022, my recurring buys for Bitcoin were $5 a week because I didn't have much income. It was worth it to me just to buy $5, $6 a week, right? Slowly I ramped that up. I kept increasing it, but you can buy as much as you want to. You don't need to buy a whole coin, right? That's what people are scared of. You don't need a whole coin. Don't buy shit coins. Don't buy meme coins. Don't do all that. Buy Bitcoin. Just buy small amounts, buy fractions. It'll add up so quick, right? It will. Like you'll see it add up. You'll see it go up in time. You'll see the value go up, and it'll incentivize you to buy more.
Couldn't agree more. I can't wait till people start referring to it in Satoshi value. I think that needs to be
Oh
the
yeah,
next main adoption curve where people stop looking at it as in one whole Bitcoin and they start looking at it from the amount of Satoshis. Like when I bought 4,500 at 65,000, and then I bought 5,000 roughly at 70,000, I was still buying 6.7 million Satoshis. And it made me
yeah.
feel so much better just knowing it's, what do they call that? The unit bias, I think it's called.
Unit bias, yeah.
Yep. So going into this cycle, what are you expecting for Bitcoin? I know we're seeing like a lot of the adoption on ETFs. You don't have to, I know a lot of people don't like to make price predictions, but what do you, it just gives a ballpark on, we got the halving coming up. Do you expect us to see that big 50% pullback we always see before the halvings? Is that what we're witnessing right here? I know Bitcoin touched down to 60,000 right before we went live. Where do you think the next floor is? I tell everybody Bitcoin pulls back 20 to 30% about 3 or 4 times per cycle. So anytime you see a 20% pullback from a peak, you have no choice but to start to DCA in. What is your strategy? What advice are you giving to people? Where do you see Bitcoin going short term?
So right now the way that I do it is I buy no matter what. If I have extra cash, I don't care what the price is, right?
Me
Because I
too.
know for a fact that and it was hard for me to learn this lesson, right? There was somebody who I actually was working with somebody who got me to learn this.
Mhm.
He watched me fail. I think it was intentional on his part. He watched me fail because I was saying, hey, Bitcoin's at 25K, it's going to go lower, it's going to go below, it's going to go to a new all-time low, right? It went from 16K to 25K, and I was thinking, oh, it's going to go lower because that's what market sentiment was at the time, right? I was stupid.
Mhm.
I just thought, hey, I know better. It worked for me before, so I'm going to keep making predictions, right? Like I said, I was stupid. I didn't know what I was talking about. He told me, hey, the best thing you can do is just buy and forget about it. Anything that you put into Bitcoin, think of it as a 4-year cycle. You're not gonna sell. You're not gonna get rid of it. You're just gonna hold it for 4 years, right? And I made that prediction it's gonna go lower, and I got burned, right?
Mhm.
I put in a short. My short got wrecked, right? I lost something like 30, 40% or something like that. And that's perfectly fine. It was a lesson that I learned. I needed to learn it. It
Yep.
was tuition, right? And now I don't care, right? If I have extra cash, I'm gonna buy it. It doesn't matter. I actually bought some Bitcoin at 73,200,
So did I.
right? Exactly? Yeah, there you go. And who
Yep.
knows? Maybe that's the highest the price will go for 5 years. But
Yep.
who gives a shit? I'm not
I'm with you.
using this money for 10, 15 years anyways. So it doesn't matter to me. The price doesn't matter. I mean, I personally think that it could drop 50% from here. It could drop 70% from here. I'll be a buyer, right? Because I understand what it
Sure
is.
will.
I've built businesses that continue to generate income for me,
Bingo.
and I'll use that income to buy Bitcoin, right? It doesn't matter what the price is. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get rid of my downside risk in terms of dollars,
Mhm.
right? Dollars have guaranteed downside risk. We could wake up tomorrow and Bitcoin could be back up at 80,000, right?
Sure
Some
could.
random not
Nation
sovereign
state.
nation could just smash by $10 billion worth, and
Yep.
Bitcoin's at 90, $100,000, right? We never know, right? You never know what's going to happen. There's so many people who waited to buy at 50K. They said, "Oh, I'm going to buy at 40," or they waited to buy at
Yep.
60K. I'm going to buy at 50. Now the price is back down to 60K and they're not buying, right? They want that 50,000. That's the thing. When you try to time the market, you're always going to feel stupid, right? It doesn't matter what you do.
Sure do.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how smart you think you are. You're always going to time the market wrong because it'll always go a little bit lower. It'll always go a little bit higher. You will never catch the peak. You'll never catch the bottom. If you try to time the market, you're almost always going to feel stupid. And I say this from experience, right? I say this as somebody who used to trade options and I got burned, right? I say this as somebody who used to buy individual stocks and I got burned there too, right? It's tuition, right? It's just the way that things work, right?
Yep.
Once you figure out that unless you're going to spend hours and hours and hours just paying attention to the market, stop. Just dollar cost average. Price doesn't matter. 10 years from now, when Bitcoin is a lot higher than it is today, you're going to be happy, right? I know a lot of people who follow me and when Bitcoin dropped from 49,000 to 39,000, they were cursing me out. They were saying, "Hey, you piece of shit, you got me to buy this. Now I'm down 20%. I'm going to sell." And some of these people sold, right? But now they feel stupid because they missed out on pretty much 50, 60, 70% gains. So,
Man, that might be the best advice. I'm literally right on
yeah.
the same. I use algorithmic trading bots to trade shitcoins for Bitcoin, right? So my bots are
that's
constantly
cool. Yeah.
trading these shitcoins, and they're making me, fairly like 20 G's every 90 days. So I
Amazing.
I can't get rid of my stable coins and my profits and put them into Bitcoin. I do about every 4 to 5,000. Every time they make about 4 or 5,000, I'll throw it at Bitcoin. It doesn't really matter what the price is, and it's hard to get that in your head that it's like you just said at 72,000, you didn't even care. Like people are like, "Oh, you bought at 70,000." I'm like, "Yeah, I bought at 72,000 actually, and I'm happy
Yeah.
I did." And I'll buy at 60,000, and I'll buy at 50,000, and I'll buy at 55,000, and I bought all the way down to 15,000, and I'll keep buying all the way back up to like I don't know if there's a price point that it hits that I'm like, I don't want more Bitcoin. What about you? Is there any point in this cycle where you're like, Bitcoin is going to get to a point where you're just like, nope, I'm not a buyer of Bitcoin anymore?
No. Why wouldn't I buy it? Why wouldn't I buy the best asset in the world, right? My goal is to have more Bitcoin no matter what every single week than I had the previous week.
Good saying,
If
man.
I can, it doesn't matter, right? Like it does the amount that you have is all that matters. The price doesn't matter. If you can keep accumulating, if you have a source of income that generates income regularly, if you have if you have a job, if you have a business, like you said, if you have trading bots, if you can keep accumulating, eventually you'll be fine, right? It's so simple that people just can't wrap their head around it. They want something that's difficult,
Yeah, that's crazy. Isn't that a crazy world
right?
we living in? It's that
Yeah,
simple.
it's insane. So I actually so I took my sister-in-law's phone
Mhm.
and I told her, "Hey, I'm gonna buy some Bitcoin for you." This was back when Bitcoin was, I think it was 65,000 Canadian, so around 50 US.
Mhm.
I told her I'm going to buy Bitcoin for you. And she said, "Hey, but it's never been higher than this." This was right at the peak. I said, "No, it doesn't matter. Just buy it. You're not going to buy it later. Just buy it now. It doesn't matter. Price does not matter." And now she's happy, right? And she was saying how, "Oh, I'm happy you did that for me. I have a certain amount of Bitcoin that I'll probably never be able to afford again." Right? Like
Yep.
it's if you think of it from that perspective, if you realize that this thing is going to continue to increase in value over time, over the next 10 years, I would say minimum 2 to 3 million. Maybe I'm wrong. Who cares?
Yep.
I don't care. Maybe I'm off a bit. Maybe I'm off significantly. Maybe it stays at 60,000. It's just more of an opportunity for us to buy more, right? There's a
Yep.
reason why it's going to stay. If it does stay at 60,000, there's a reason for it, right? To me, the reason for that is that people haven't figured it out. It's either going to zero, it's going to $100 million, right? And my bet is on it going to 100 million. So
I couldn't agree more. Rasha, do us a huge favor. Tell us about all your social media channels that you're on. I have your Twitter over here on the screen. It is also linked down in the description. I want everybody to follow you. I want them to swing over and check out your link tree, which is also down in the description, where it offers your masterclass, your mini course. I know you said you didn't come on here to promote them, but I can absolutely promote them for you. And I will, because I encourage everybody to get more educated on Bitcoin. And I think you've built something really amazing here that can help a lot of people. So give us your best shill for the last couple minutes and we'll wrap it up.
Appreciate that, Ryan. So I post on Instagram. My name, it's a RAJAT Soni Finance. It's the same as my Twitter, but there's an in on Instagram there's an I in the finance, so it's RAJAT Soni Finance, the full word. On Twitter, there's no I in the finance. I have a newsletter, rajatsonifinance.com. You can go there. I post regularly. I try to post once a week if I can. A lot of my content is actually on Twitter. I think the Twitter is probably where I'm getting the most traction with helping people on Bitcoin. Instagram people aren't figuring it out yet, so they're taking some time. I try to post as much as I can on there as well. Other than that, I mean, I don't really have much to sell. If people don't want to take the course, perfectly fine. My goal with the course is just to save people some time, right? It took me something like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 hours to get to the point where I am, right? If somebody wants to put in that 2,000-3,000 hours, go for it, right? It may actually work out better for them. Maybe there's something in my courses that I missed, and maybe they can help me out. If anybody takes the course and they find mistakes, let me know. I want to fix them, right? I'm an open book. I'm okay with, if you have any questions, anybody have any questions, DM me. I want to help, right? I think your goal here as well. My goal, your goal is to make sure that as many average people as possible own Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more that average people own it, the fewer banks own.
Yes.
Right. So like there's people who El Salvador own something like 5,600 Bitcoin. There are individuals who own more than that. Right. And I would rather have the individuals have the concentrated wealth over the nations, over the banks, over the large financial institutions, just because it takes more control away from them. It's like everything else, right? When governments wanted to take control of our lives, they took our gold away and they started forcing us to, when the U.S. government did, but they wanted us to use their paper, and that's exactly what happened. And look at where that led us, right? It led us to a situation where we are pretty much slaves to that paper. We're spending our entire lives trying to earn a piece of paper that's losing value over time, right?
Yes,
If
absolutely.
I can get the word out to buy Bitcoin with that paper that you're earning, I'm happy.
Man, I couldn't have said it any better. And if you guys are just listening to us, we got a lot of people with their just the ear pods in. Over on X, his username is RAJATSONI. So it's Sony, but with SONI in finance over on X. Please make sure you guys swing over there and give this gentleman a follow. It is absolutely worth your time. I appreciate you so much, buddy. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And you have my link, or you have my Calendly now. So anytime you want to come on and just shoot the shit for 30 minutes or an hour, man, just book a slot. You don't even have to ask to come back on. You're always welcome.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd love to do more of these calls too. I think these calls are, I think these are key to help people learn. They're key to just get my thoughts out. I think I learn a lot from these calls too. So definitely interested.
Awesome, bro. I'll hopefully have you on at least, a couple times a month if you want to, man. I would love to have you on. So, all right, buddy.
Oh yeah,
be safe out there.
I'm so down for that.
Awesome, man. Well, be safe out there and stay safe over there in Canada, man. Keep fighting for you guys' freedom. We got your back.
Thank you, Ryan.
God bless you, man. All right, folks, that is a wrap over here on the Ryan Matta Show. We do 2 crypto podcasts every single day. First one goes off at 10 a.m. Second one goes off at 9 p.m. I'm also over on LFA TV. That show is exclusively on Rumble. It's called Matter of Fact. So if you want to see my political views, if you want to hear about how corrupt our government is and really go down the rabbit holes and talk about all those quote unquote conspiracy theories that seem to be coming true all of a sudden, I'd appreciate it if you swing over to the LFA channel. Again, my show is called Matter of Fact over on LFARumble.com. And hit that subscribe button on your way out the door. We have 43 people watching over here on Rumble. Hit that thumbs up button. Smash it on the way out the door. God bless each and every one of you. And God bless America. God bless Donald Trump. We'll see you guys in the next one. We out. Later, guys.
Run.